Hi everyone, welcome back to USCIS Analysis. Merry Christmas! This is the update for December 25th, 2022 regarding the processing times for the I-129F petition for alien fiancé by USCIS. First, let me give my usual disclaimer. I am not affiliated with USCIS and I am not an immigration lawyer. I'm just a guy with some data mining skills trying to better understand how long I'm going to have to wait until my fiancé and I can move to the US to get married. My data mining takes a lot of effort, so I want to share it with as many people as possible. Next, let me mention that this analysis only looks at applications being processed at the California Service Center. I've mined the statuses of all cases at all 5 service centers for the past 2 years, a total of more than 2 million case receipt numbers, and I found that for I-129F, 93% of the applications are handled by the California Service Center. If you're one of the lucky 5% to have a case that was received at the Nebraska, Potomac, or Vermont service centers, then let me say congratulations, you should hear something earlier than what's predicted in this video. Also, in this video, I mainly refer to cases by the date that they are received by USCIS. If you don't know this date for your case, there are 2 easy ways to find out. First, you can check the notice of action that USCIS sent after you submitted your case. It'll show your case receipt number as well as the received date. Second, if you remember your case receipt number, then you can look up your case status on the website egov.uscis.gov/case status. If your case hasn't received any action yet, then it will probably look something like this with an indication of the date that your case was received. Jumping right in, this chart shows the number and status of cases that received a so-called NOA2 from the California Service Center last week. NOA2 refers to the first notification of action after a case is received. This action is usually approval, shown here in green, denial, shown here in red, or some request for additional information, shown here in yellow. From this chart we can see that the California Service Center is currently processing cases that were received around late September 2021 to early October 2021, as well as some older cases. In other words, the California Service Center is processing cases that were received around 15 months ago, which is in line with the processing time estimate that's on the USCIS website. This chart shows the statuses of almost all of the I-129F cases received by the California Service Center over the last year and a half or so. Every bar represents the number of cases that were received during 1 week. Cases that were recently received are on the right, and cases that were received a long time ago are on the left. Here, blue indicates the number of cases that are waiting for NOA2 from USCIS. In total, there are more than 50,000 cases still waiting for some notification from USCIS. Over the past 4 weeks, USCIS has been receiving around 825 new cases every week. This chart shows the number of cases that have been closed each week for the past year. The good news is that USCIS has been able to more than double their throughput compared to the beginning of the year. Over the last 4 weeks, USCIS has averaged closing 607 cases per week. Again, the number of cases that were approved is shown in green, cases that were denied are shown in red, and cases withdrawn by the applicant are shown in gray. USCIS has been approving around 93% of I-129F cases recently. Unfortunately, closing 607 cases a week is not good enough to keep pace with the 825 cases a week that USCIS has been receiving. In other words, USCIS is receiving 36% more cases than they are closing, which means that the backlog of cases is growing and the wait time is increasing. This chart shows the percentage of cases that have received NOA2 so far. Basically, cases that are more recent than October of 2021 have not received any notice yet. Also, a significant number of cases from August and September of 2021 are still waiting for NOA2. Here's some more detail for cases that were received around August to October of 2021. This chart shows the statuses of all cases that were received on each given day. Remember that blue shows the number of cases that are still waiting for NOA2. What's shocking to me is that the progress USCIS has made processing cases that were received on October 4th is almost the same as the progress they've made on cases that were received August 30th. Why is it taking USCIS so long to process cases that were received 5 weeks earlier? This chart shows the statuses of even older cases. Here, the vast majority of cases have already begun to be processed, but there are still a few instances where more than 5% of the cases that were received on a day are still waiting to be processed. I'm highlighting those days in red here. To me, this indicates that there is some disorder at USCIS that is causing some unpredictability and unfairness, and I hope they can fix it. Anyways, if your case was received before October 2021, then you've reached the front of the line and you could hear something anytime, but it's hard to say exactly when. Here are some projections for the I-129F cases that were received in 2021. This is assuming that USCIS continues to close cases at around 607 cases per week, which is the average rate over the last 4 weeks. As we've seen in the data, USCIS doesn't process cases in strict order, but rather over a window of around 13 weeks. Because of this, I'm showing two projections, a 50% probability and a 95% probability. For example, for the cases that were received on November 8, 2021, based on the current pace that USCIS is processing cases, I expect that 50% of the cases will be processed by February 5th and 95% of the cases will be processed by April 16th. Here are some projections for the I-129F applications that were received in early 2022. Please note that these projections assume that USCIS does not improve the pace of processing cases, so these projections are likely to change a bit as they get closer. Finally, here are some rough projections for cases that were received more recently. These projections are so far away that I have to believe that USCIS will improve by then, so I expect that these projections will improve significantly over time. In fact, my projection for cases that were received in September of 2022 is already a month and a half shorter than it was in my video from 2 months ago. So here are some key takeaways from this data mining and analysis. First, USCIS is currently processing cases that were received around late September to early October of 2021. If your application was received after October 2021, then your wait is likely to be longer than the 15.5 months that's currently shown on the USCIS website. Second, the backlog of I-129F applications is currently more than 54,000 cases. USCIS is currently receiving around 825 new cases per week, but is only closing around 607 cases per week. This means that unless USCIS improves, processing times are going to continue to increase. Earlier this year, USCIS announced the goal of reducing processing times to only 6 months by October of 2023. At the moment, they're still heading in the wrong direction, so I'd like to ask you all for your help. Please take a moment to write to your or your sponsor's senator and congressman to help us put more pressure on USCIS to improve this worsening situation. Links to finding the contact information for your senator and congressman are in the description below. I really hope that you found this information helpful so that you can better plan your future with your soon-to-be spouse. If so, please help me spread this information to others by giving a like to this video. Also, thanks to everyone who leaves comments. It's been very motivating and helps me to improve these update videos. Finally, I'll definitely continue to track this situation, so please consider subscribing to keep up with the latest. Thanks and happy holidays!